So how did you get involved with On the Basis of Sex?
I think Mimi had Temptin had used for reference while they were cutting some of my music from Moneyball, I believe, or Capote, or maybe both. So
All of them.
maybe all of them. Yeah. So she had a sense that it was the sensibility was kind of in the right area.
So she already had you in mind,
Yeah.
But
And
like,
then we met, and and she showed me the film, and I absolutely loved it and found it super inspiring right from the moment I saw it.
so was the film completely done at that point, or like pretty close to like a lock cut?
It was, it still had a few months of editing to go, but it was, pretty together. And I thought even from the first screening that it was pretty close. It felt like it could have been released the way I saw it.
Is that more helpful to you to have like the full movie or most of the full movie in front of you, or do you like working like from the beginning, from the pre-production on, piece by piece?
It kind of depends on the project, but I think there was something about this project, about it being kind of all together, and then being thrown into it. So Mimi basically said, and I think like Nick also mentioned, there's the idea of you kind of accumulate your experience, and often I'd like to start at the beginning of a film and work my way all the way through. I like the orchestra to play it that way too, so people discover the themes, and as they develop, and it kind of unfolds naturally, and you like to write it that way. But Mimi was having trouble with this one section, which happened to be the most important moment of the film, this sort of light bulb moment for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And she said, we can't find anything to temp, and we want to show it to people. Can you start here? And normally I would really resist that, but for whatever reason, I kind of had that first energy you get, and after 4 months or 5 months of working on a film, that energy might very well not be there. But I had that energy and that inspiration, and so I dove right in and wrote that, and it actually ended up to be a really smart way to do it, because it had that kind of momentum and energy that I felt, like that kind of light bulb moment. Because as an audience member, you also have this kind of realization of what she's saying. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. I got thrown into the deep end and then went back to the beginning and kind of wrote my way.
Is that her big speech at the end in the courtroom, or earlier?
No, it's kind of in the middle of the film where Ruth is with her daughter, and she's just kind of been told by people, look, you can't change the laws. You have to get out there and protest. You've got to change hearts and minds before you change the law. And then her daughter is there, and her daughter kind of
when the guys like heckle.
Exactly. She mouths off these guys, and she's wearing a mini skirt, and she's super confident, and she's like just very. And Ruth looks at her and realizes the world has changed. America has changed. Like, we don't need to change America. It already has. It's the laws that need to catch up. And so it's this kind of amazing moment where she suddenly sees the whole argument of her case in front of her. The argument being that these laws are defending an America that doesn't exist anymore. And the law needs, and America is constructed, the Constitution is built for change. It's built to develop and evolve along with the society, or slightly behind it. It should never be in front. It should be following along. And so the theme has got this energy and dynamism, as well as a kind of American quality, which we wanted to give her, as opposed to the kind of other faction in the film, the
Sam Waterston.
Yes, the old guard, all the old white guys who are basically, the controllers of the system, of the institution, of the laws. But, it was very important. Mimi didn't want us to make them the bad guys and kind of have this sinister sound for them, because in their way, they're as patriotic and American as her. It's just that they're, as she puts it, you're defending, these laws that or of America that doesn't exist anymore. And so it's kind of her. So in a way, she's the point of the spear of the change, and she has to kind of point out to the law, things have changed. Like this, women actually do work now, and now the laws need to catch up to that. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a really inspiring story, and especially for the state of discourse today, it's just kind of this was
made before the Kavanaugh hearings.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, and that there's this card at the very end that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was confirmed to the Supreme Court, a vote of 96-3. It's kind of the last card, and it seems really ironic that we put it there, but that card was there long before Kavanaugh or anything. So we were working on this, a year ago, kind of before. I mean, it certainly felt. It felt very timely, but it feels even more timely.
Mm-hmm. I love Ruth's anthem because it feels like an anthem because there's a lot of drums involved, and it reminded me of a marching band, and she's literally marching up the steps in the beginning and end of the film. So were you inspired by marching bands for her?
Yeah, definitely, and just the feeling of the Americanness of that sound, and then in a lot of movies you might make the old white guy institutions to have the brass and the snare drums, but we wanted to kind of flip it around and give Ruth that Americanness because she is truly reflective of what the true character of America is, a country that can change and develop, and that's the strength of it, and it's what makes it the greatest country ever. So there is that sense of march, of momentum, but also there is built into the theme. There's kind of almost a glass ceiling built into it. It kind of, well, I'm not going to sing it, but it goes, bum, 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 bum. It keeps kind of like trying to break through. So it's kind of got both those qualities baked into it. I mean, I couldn't help sitting up there seeing this thing about experts, and I mean, what we do, and all of us would tell you this. It's so mysterious that we feel our way towards what we're doing, but after doing this for decades, I still learn every project I work on. I learn something new or many things new, and yeah, it's a strange and mysterious thing that we do.
So what did you learn from this one?
I learned that cliches can be fun if you flip them around and do the expected, but do it in an unexpected place.
Because I do feel like the drums were a good base for her because it's so consistent throughout the film, and it's kind of like as sturdy as like her conviction and her argument, whereas we're going through like decades in the film and like times are changing, but she's still strong in her conviction.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were kind of aiming for, which is that, yeah, we see her in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, but we don't, the music doesn't change, that the consistency, and of course there's source music that changes, but the essence of who she is and what she's striving for doesn't change for her whole life. And it's not just her, it's her and Marty, her husband, which is kind of a beautiful thing about the film, is just the portrayal of their partnership.
So going back to the other half, this old white guys, how did you start with their music when Mimi told you, like, I don't want, like, an evil sound? Because it is very restrained, like, in those scenes.
Yeah, exactly. It was more of a sense of non-movement, sort of all the opposite things that Ruth's theme had, of the momentum and the push, the energy. It was kind of like locked into a loop, into something that didn't move anywhere, then develop. So a sense of like tried to make it a little bit, placid and stale in a sense, and just not go anywhere.
When you're dealing with like such an inspirational story like hers, and it's very uplifting, how conscious are you of trying not to make the music too heavy-handed, like what people expect of like these types of stories?
Yeah, and that's something that we had to be very careful about, and that's probably one of the things that she, was interested in my work about. It was just kind of overall restraint of it, in the sense that not wanting to cross that line and manipulate. After all, what we do as composers is manipulate people's feelings from the beginning of the film to the end, but to do it in such a way that intelligent people don't feel that they're being, shoved in a certain direction. So it has to be kind of gentle and you present the idea, but you don't push it on people.
Were there times where you were like, we have to pull back on this one?
Definitely, yeah, and also the mix itself, like how present the music is in the soundtrack, is something that we really worked on to not have it, too intrusive, but at the moment where you need to feel that energy and that lift and inspiration, that it's there.
Mm-hmm. So what are you working on now?
Just starting a film called After the Wedding by the director Bart Freundlich, and it's Julianne Moore, and it's a really fantastic film. Also working on a couple of animated films which take years to do, Addams Family and a untitled Pixar thing, and so all kinds of things.